I'm here on Park Avenue with a Park Avenue, a car within a street within a car within Inception. Now, anywho, I'm not on famous New York City's Park Avenue, obviously, which this Buick was named after. I'm on a Park Avenue here in Wichita, Kansas, where you're much more likely to find an old Buick still rolling around. The reason I'm on Park Avenue with a Park Avenue is to highlight these often overlooked Buicks that are really the best vehicles someone can buy for under $3,000. Used Camrys and Accords are the obvious choice in this pricing bracket, but I feel they are way overvalued. And by the time they get really cheap, they usually have over 200,000 miles or look like a college student lived inside of it and used it as a giant bong for 4 years. Plus, they're really boring, they're not the most comfortable or powerful, and really you're lucky if the previous owner changed the oil once a year. Now, cheap Buicks from the mid-90s to the mid-2000s, before those horrible "That's a Buick" commercial came out, were owned mostly by older people who usually looked after them well, but they're also total tanks. Getting 300,000 miles out of these legendary 3800 V6s is pretty common, and whatever repairs are needed along the way are really easy to take care of, along with really cheap parts prices. So when people ask me what car they can get for cheap, what's the best car I can get, I always point them towards these, to which everybody politely ignores me and buys something stupid. I guess people can't shake the stigma of a Buick being an old fogey's car and don't realize these cars are actually more comfortable, more powerful, and a lot more fun than an old Camry. And before you today is what I consider the absolute best Buick of this era, a 1996 Park Avenue Ultra. And this might sound a little nuts, but I think this was one of the coolest cars to come out of the 90s. No, don't groan. Seriously, hear me out on this, and since I'm freezing my butt off, I'm going to do this next bit in voiceover. 1996 was the last year of this body style, the last breath of this Malaise era styling before the cars got super blobby and plasticky inside and out. Now, the interior is really where it's at on this thing, and I'll get to that in a bit, but first let's go over all the cool stuff on the outside. My favorite feature has to do with the license plate, which doesn't need to be screwed in. Rather, Buick decided that license plates needed to slide through this little slot here in the trunk. So if you're a secret agent or a criminal, this Buick really is the car for you, as swapping plates only takes a few seconds. And of course, just like all the fancy GM products of the era, it has an electric motor that assists in closing the trunk. Yep, they don't make them like they used to. Well, probably in this case because the motor was rumored to have chopped off a few fingers. Let's quickly move on to the front before I lose one of my own fingers to frostbite, which has a feature that I think should be standard on all cars. With the headlights on, activating the turn signal also turns on a side beam so you can see what you're turning into. I'm also a big fan of anything with a hood badge, which is quickly becoming extinct. And if hood badges aren't your thing, you're going to have to admit this thing has an awesome horn. But probably the most impressive part of this car is the engine. Now, 1996 was the last year of this body style, but it got the new generation Phase 2 3800 or Series 2 V6. And since this car is an Ultra, it has a little something special. And I can't remember how to pop the hood because my hands are frozen, but here it is. Yep, it's got a blower on it just like the Monte Carlo SS and the GTP Pontiacs of the day. Now, this is still the 90s, so this meant it only had 240 horsepower, but that was the same as a BMW M3 back in the day, and really the torque is where this thing's at, which makes this thing hilarious. But breaking the front wheels loose with hilarious torque steer isn't this Buick's only party trick. Inside there's plenty of weird stuff that would surely make Doug DeMuro squeal with delight. The setup of the dashboard really reminds me of the next generation Starship Enterprise bridge, as they chose to make all of the warning lights up high in what looks like a normal plastic panel, but when you turn the key, all of it lights up with all of the warning lights. This Buick also has automatic headlights, which they called a Twilight Sentinel, and you can adjust the sensitivity to either Team Edward or Team Jacob. And my nose started running and all that. Factor also has something to play with way over on their door, which is a really odd dual-zone climate control setup. And it doesn't let you set a specific temperature, rather within 4 red or blue LED bars within the main climate control, which happens to beep every time you adjust something, which is kind of annoying, but once again, Starship Enterprise. You've also got a crazy amount of seat adjustments in these insanely comfortable pillow top seats, but the coolest party trick is right here on the steering wheel, which controls a lot of essential things, but the coolest part is when you change the radio volume. Now, if that volume knob doesn't convince you, I don't know what will, because clearly this Buick is one of the coolest cars to come out of the 90s and one of the best kept secrets by AARP members. But now you know, and you can go shopping for one just like I did. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that I bought this thing for only $2,000. I was up in Kansas City a few weeks ago for work and made the usual mistake of browsing for cars online and, well, hello, gorgeous. Now, this Buick came with all the books, including its original window sticker, which touted a $35,000 original MSRP. And my favorite part is this little guide Buick made to explain all the noises a car makes when something breaks and how to accurately describe it to a mechanic. No, I'm not joking. This booklet is designed to help you recognize those times when your car needs special attention. Service needed over the above normal maintenance instructions in your owner's manual. It will also help you explain needed service to your service advisor, technician, or other person who writes up your order so your car can be fixed quickly with the least inconvenience. Boom sounds like a continuous bass drum roll, distant thunder. Click like a camera shutter, retractable ballpoint pen. Clunk like a heavy door closing. Grind, sharpening an axe, grinding wheel, garbage disposal. Growl like an angry dog. Hiss, air escaping from a tire. Steam from a radiator. Rattle, a baby's rattle. Stone bouncing around in a can. More signals. A roar like a lion or waterfall. A rumble like a bowling ball rolling down an alley. A squeak like a tennis shoe on a wooden floor. A mouse or a door hinge that needs oil. Squeal, a high-pitched squeal of a pig. Fingernails scraping on a chalkboard. Whine is an electric drill motor or a mosquito. A whistle is a tea kettle boiling or a toy whistle. It also does odors. So antifreeze coolant is a sweet, steamy odor, usually accompanied by steam from under the hood. Burning oil, heavy, thick odor, possibly accompanied by smoke from under the hood or exhaust. An electrical short, acrid odor like burned toast. Emissions, continuous and heavy sulfur odor like bad eggs. Gasoline, odor of gasoline vapors. Huh. And also you have a nice little signals checklist where you can write down what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're seeing, how it's driving, what kind of problems it has. It has a nice little checklist to hand into your service advisor when it breaks, which something Buick really didn't need to do, but BMW, Range Rover, I'd take some notes here.
I bought it a few weeks ago with no way to get it home, so I left it in Kansas City and concocted a little New Year's family vacation just to get it back. I didn't realize this a few weeks ago when it was 50 degrees outside, but the passenger side climate control was stuck on full cold. It wasn't a big deal when it was 50 degrees, but this was a really big deal when it's 4 degrees outside and the Arctic air was totally beating out the driver's side heat. I knew this was a blend door problem, these little doors behind the dash, but it turns out it was a really easy fix. You just have to pull down on the glove box door until it pops out, and then you can actually reach inside and access the blend door and manually open and close it. And the other part that's broken on this car, I'll have to show you outside, but I really don't want to go out in the cold again. Oh, it's cold. So as you can probably tell, the rear end of my Park Avenue is sagging a bit. It has kind of a weird air shock on the rear, but unlike a Lincoln Town Car or a Range Rover, when they quit working, it doesn't make the car undrivable. Even with the air assist not working, it's still the nicest riding car that I've ever owned, and it won't cost very much to fix. And for those trying to keep score on how many cars I have, just don't. And why this? I don't know. I can't stop, and I was having lanyard withdrawals too. This car is also pretty much useless for videos as well, since who the heck is going to tune in for a video series about a gold Buick? So really, I just did this for me, and I feel good about this one, and you could too if you let yourself get past the first initial impression that this car is boring and weird looking on the outside. It doesn't have six-pack abs, and it really is that nice guy you say you want, but never seem attracted to. And what were we talking about again?
To either Team Edward or Team...
Oh, no, you fell down. I'm so sorry.
Why, I don't know. Like I said, Starship Enterprise.
Stop it. Stop doing that. Why won't you stick?